Welcome to the Sent from Disneyland podcast.
Here age relives fond memories of the past.
If it's your first time joining us, welcome. On this episode, we'll take a journey into the past and explore Disneyland and Disneyland history with mementos, snapshots, and postcards sent from Disneyland from 1955 to the present. Today, I'm starting off by thanking my patrons from patreon.com. You can join and receive mail from my desk or from my Disneyland trips. Special thanks to Random Olive, the first patron to this podcast, and to the e-ticket patrons Tania, Eric Daniels, Joe Gamble, Scott Booker, Monica Seitz Vega, Russ Romano, Michael and Christina Cross, Scott Cagle, and Sheila Harry. C-ticket patrons Serious Inquiries Only, Debbie Weinstein, Jennifer Schneep, Grace Coate, Ben and Noel Bruning, Patty Wolin, Angela Reynolds, and Aaron Moran. B-ticket patrons The Disney Rewind Podcast, Jeff and Paige Orton, and Joshua, and Exorable Tosh Bell. And the A-ticket patrons, Elise Sharp, Zealot Infinity, Alexis Robles, Maggie and Henry Byers, Angel DeBlois, and the All Aboard podcast. You can also sign up for my new newsletter for a chance to get some postcards delivered by the USPS to your mailbox. I am your host, your post-host Clocky, and today we have 2 postcards sent from Disneyland. Welcome to the Sent from the New York World's Fair podcast. On this podcast, we'll take a journey into the past and explore the New York World's Fair and World's Fair history with mementos, snapshots, and postcards sent from the New York World's Fair from 1964 to 1965. I am your host, your post-host Clocky, and today we have 2 postcards sent from the 1964 New York World's Fair. The front of our first postcard has the highway next to the Ford Rotunda. On the right, you can see the sign for Ford Motor Company, and on the left, you can see guests lined up to see what's inside. On the back, it reads, The Ford Rotunda, New York World's Fair, 1964-1965, Peace Through Understanding. This unique building has a glass rotunda with 64 towering pylons at one end and a large exposition hall at the other. It contains a variety of exhibits, a number of which were designed by Walt Disney. It's postmarked September 12, 1964, with a New York City cancel and a 4-cent Lincoln postage stamp, Scott number 1036. I assume they visited the fair on Saturday, September 12th, when fair hours were from 9 a.m. to midnight. The weather was a high of 78 and a low of 59. It's addressed to a Miss Ann Burns of Sacramento, California. It reads, Hi. The fair is great. Saw most of it. You're probably on vacation now. Dan relocated to Maryland. Next week to Washington, D.C. Love, Martha. Since this episode is being released while I'm in New York, I thought it'd be fun for April Fool's Day to talk about the 1964 New York World's Fair. While looking up information about the fair hours, I found a full fair schedule, which included times that Mickey Mouse and 15 other Walt Disney characters would be in person to shake hands and pose for pictures. Fair visitors would be able to see the characters at the Pepsi-Cola UNICEF Pavilion every day between 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. Looking deeper into the weekly schedule when Martha attended the fair, I found that Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln was available to see between 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. at the Illinois Pavilion. Another interesting Disney feature was available starting at 1:10 p.m. and every 20 minutes until 9:50. The Bell Picture Telephone would be demonstrated by calling from the World's Fair to Disneyland. The setup at Disneyland's end was in Tomorrowland, but guests from both coasts would see a picture phone call being made. Since it was recently my birthday, I found a fun little thing offered at the fair by the New York Times and the Birth Dates Association, Inc. There was a booth set up where they would reproduce a full-size front page of the New York Times for the day of your birth, between 1895 through 1963. So if you're over 70, you were out of luck. Do you know what's great to put on a special greeting card? Vintage stamps from Enfield Post. Be sure to check out the special Sunday sales at EP Sunday Sale on Instagram. It's a great way to add a little bit of flair to a birthday card, holiday card, or a postcard. That's EP Sunday Sale on Instagram, or you can head over to EnfieldPost.com and explore all the different vintage stamps you can use on your next card or letter. That's ENFIELD POST on Instagram and EnfieldPost.com for your wedding and vintage postage needs. Enfield Post is the official postage stamp sponsor of the Sent from Disneyland podcast. The front of our next postcard has the General Electric Dome at the New York World's Fair at night. You can see the GE logo on the top of a tower. On the back it reads, General Electric Pavilion at night. New York World's Fair, 1964-1965. Peace through Understanding. Progress Land is the theme of the General Electric exhibit. Under a huge gleaming dome, suspended from spiraling pipes, the GE exhibit depicts the history of electricity from its beginning to the mighty bang of nuclear fusion. It's postmarked October 15, 1965, with a New York cancel and a 4-cent Lincoln postage stamp, Scott number 1036. I assume they visited the fair on Thursday, October 14th, when fair hours were from 9 a.m. to midnight. The weather was a high of 64 and a low of 48. It's addressed to a Miss B. Cox and Dr. V. George of San Diego, California. It reads, 10/14/65. The fair is wonderful, but hard on the feet. Good weather here and immense crowds. Going to West Point tomorrow and Philadelphia Saturday. Best wishes, I. Harryun. Looking through the fair's hour and schedule list, it's interesting that the other Disney attractions, like the Carousel of Progress and It's a Small World, are not listed. Reading through other articles about the fair, I found out that the fair was $2 for adults and $1 for children to attend. Some attractions had separate costs, including some of the exhibits and shows, up to an additional $1 per performance or attraction. The money raised by It's a Small World was donated directly to UNICEF. Some of the non-Disney attraction rides included the United States Royal Tire Ride, an 80-foot-high Ferris wheel shaped like a royal tire, a carousel, pony rides, and 3 new amusement rides called the Meteor, the Octopus, and the Scrambler. Other fun displays that I would have investigated were the different train exhibits and the International Antique Coin and Stamp Exposition. Every night, from Monday through Sunday, there was a fountain and fireworks show with different themes, starting with Broadway on Monday, Great Masters, Patriotic, Great Masters Again, Broadway Again, College Songs, and finishing Sunday with Familiar Melodies. This incoming postcard is sponsored by the Art Throwdown. Art Throwdown, or ATD, is an online craft hour on Instagram, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 Pacific. Be sure to check out Monday's ATD, which is usually hosted by a paper artist, Russ Romano. I've seen many amazing art projects, learned about awesome postmarks, postage stamp history, and a lot more on different episodes. It's great to stop in for an hour to watch someone craft or design something unique. Each host brings something a little different to each show. I'll list some of the regular hosts, or you can follow Russ Romano 2021 on Instagram. The front of my incoming mail is an upcycled envelope, originally meant to be an office fund voucher that kept track of payments and how much cash or funds were inside the envelope, plus a half-page desk stationery that says, I can and I will, at the top of an orange page. It's not postmarked but was sent with 2 stamps, a $2 Patriotic Waves postage stamp, Scott number 4954, and a 25-cent 1988 Thinking of You Flowers postage stamp, Scott number 2397. It reads, Hey Clocky, just wanted to send you some unique postcards that you won't see anymore. Thanks for your support. Love always, Russ Romano. Thank you so much for the postcards, Russ. Russ was kind enough to pre-send me a stack of New York City postcards for my upcoming trip. Hopefully, by the time this episode is available, I've been to a few Broadway shows, gone to the New York World's Fair site, and met Russ in person. Although we have sent postcards, chatted online, and watched each other's Instagram and Art Throwdown lives, we've never officially met in person. The postcards are amazing, and I look forward to taking them back over to New York and sending them all over. Thanks for listening to Sent from Disneyland. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and tell your friends. It would be awesome to share your favorite episode. There are over 100 episodes to choose from. It would also help to leave a 5-star rating and comment on whatever podcast platform you use. If you'd like to support the show financially, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/SentFromDisneyland. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Sent From Disneyland, or on Twitter at Sent From Disney. For questions and comments, send me a postcard addressed to Sent From Disneyland, P.O. Box 44, Hood, California, 95639. This podcast is not affiliated with Disney, the United States Postal Service, or any post office or Disney properties. Opinions expressed on this podcast belong to its host and guests of the Sent from Disneyland podcast.